Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters and welcome guests. In 1966, guys from America were fleeing to Canada to avoid the draft and service in the war in Vietnam, which was just beginning to heat up. I'm the only case I know of somebody who did it backwards. Started in Canada, came back to serve in uniform. Here's the story. First of all, I was very proud of being accepted by the National Theatre School of Canada. It was a prestigious place, and I loved the idea of becoming a Shakespearean actor, and I was well on my way. The draft board, of course, did not like the fact that I was no longer a resident of the United States, and so they withdrew my student deferment and told me to expect a letter from the Army when the report. Now, in addition to doing Shakespeare at the theater school and studying the training, I was also happily working at a CBC, Canadian Broadcasting Company, a little show that they had cast. And I was standing in my dressing room, and these two guys barged in, and they say, "Excuse us, we understand that you're an American and you're about to be called up into the service and perhaps go to Vietnam." I said, "Yes." They said, "Well, you know, you don't have to do that. You could stay right here in Canada. We can see to it you get the paperwork filled out. We'll get you a place to live. We can even, get you a job if you need." I said, "Who are you guys anyway?" "Oh, we're from the Communist Party of Canada. Here's my card." Well, I stood up like John Wayne, made my father proud, and threw them right out of my dressing room. About 2 years later, I was up to my shirt pockets in the Mekong River, wondering how the party was going in Canada that day. Well, whatever doesn't kill you helps you make up your mind, and meeting a communist certainly made my mind. My first day in the Army was a trauma, of course. It usually is. They take everything away from you. They take your clothes. They take your autonomy. They take your hair. And when they took my hair, it left nothing but a misshapen skull covered with fuzz. I looked like the last cantaloupe off the truck. Now, they put me in a group of recruits and put us in a barracks at Fort Leonard Wood. Now, I was 23 years old at that time, and most of the rest of my bunkmates in that building were high school dropouts, 17, 18 years old. So when the sergeant slammed the door and told us to get some sleep, of course, nobody wanted to. They were as wired as a bunch of 12-year-old girls at a pajama party. And I, meanwhile, am dreading the following day. And I know if I don't get some sleep, there's going to be hell to pay. So I decided after about an hour of giggles and amateur cursing that some leadership was required. So I got out of bed, tiptoed through the dark in the direction of the latrine. But I turned left instead of right, out the back door of the barracks, around to the front, and hid in the dark at the front door and said, "All right, you men, if I don't get silence and you guys get some sleep right now, I'm going to start taking names and kicking butt. I hope I make myself clear." Retraced my step back around, tiptoed back to my bunk through the sudden hush of the room. Well, I said to the nearby bunkmate, "What happened?" He said, "Oh, Sergeant was in here mad. Is he mad? He says we better get some sleep or he's going to kick butt." Good, let's sleep. So the lesson there is leadership is taken, not given. Now, when I finally did get orders for Vietnam, they were going to fly me from Alameda Naval Air Station in Oakland, California, and that's right across the bay from San Francisco, a city that I've never seen. So the night before the flight, I decided to go and visit San Francisco. I took a ferry across the bay, met up with some Navy guys, champion fellows. They knew every bar in town. And soon I was in a very sailorish mood, about 6 sheets to the wind, I believe is about a jazz club where Miles Davis was playing. Well, I'm an old jazz fan. I settled in there for the evening, drinking Mai Tais and enjoying the jazz. I had no idea how I got back to the barracks. The next thing I recall is waking up at 11:30 the next morning in an empty room. There were 300 empty bunks. 300 men had somehow or other gotten up, showered, shaved, swatted each other with wet towels, played grab-ass, dressed, and marched off to war right past my bunk and failed to alert me to the news. Now, it's interesting to speculate that perhaps missing that flight is the only reason I'm standing here today, and that could well be. Who knows? And when I finally did get to Bin Hua Air Base, about 40 miles north of Saigon, they didn't know what to do with me. So they said, okay, well, why don't you join that group over there? There's 8 or 10 guys standing there. You're on a special mission. Well, they loaded the 8 or 10 of us into a truck and took us to a banana plantation. I tell you, this banana plantation, it looked like a set from an old tropical movie, some story by Somerset Maugham or something. Fantastic. Now, the house itself was cleared out, so they made us sit on our duffel bags in a semicircle. And lo and behold, who comes out but Kurt Gowdy and Keith Mitchell, two very famous TV sportscasters from back in the day. And they come out to give us a sports report and to cheer up our morale, because after all, we're fighting a war. And they come out and say, now, howdy, Keith. I'm Keith Mitchell, I'm Kurt Gowdy, and we think these boys are as strong as any sportsman in the country. I think these guys could all be on a great team like the Brooklyn Dodgers or the Milwaukee Braves or the Los Angeles Rams. And that was our special mission. We were to be their first audience for a dress rehearsal of their USO show. They left us with a little 25-cent fingernail clipper, my souvenir from the war. And that's how I started the war in Vietnam.